Do you know that feeling when you look at your life and think, I make decent money, but somehow I always mess it up? You make progress, then out of nowhere there's a dumb purchase, an impulsive decision, a just this once, and suddenly you're back in the same place. And it's frustrating because it doesn't feel like a lack of information. It feels like a lack of control. You try to get organized. You download an app, build a spreadsheet, promise yourself this time it'll be different. But when the money hits your account, something pulls you into autopilot, spending to relieve stress, delaying investing, ignoring a good opportunity. Then the guilt shows up, and with it comes the question that hurts. Why do I do this to myself? And here's what most people miss. Sometimes you don't sabotage yourself by spending. You sabotage yourself by staying small. You avoid growth because money changes people, or rich people are bad, or it feels wrong to want more. You feel guilty when you start earning better, like you're betraying someone, or betraying who you used to be. There's a very specific point where this changes, and it's not where you think. Most people will tell you you just need better tactics, better budgeting, more discipline, a better ETF, a better method. But if it were only that, smart, hardworking people wouldn't repeat the same pattern for years. The truth is, there's an invisible layer driving your decisions, the beliefs you carry about money. And those beliefs aren't just cute phrases. They show up in your body. They become anxiety when you see money sitting there, relief when you spend, fear when you think about investing. And if you don't notice that, you keep trying to fix behavior without fixing what's underneath behavior. I study the psychology of money and financial behavior because much of the financial chaos is actually emotional chaos. Subscribe and hit like if this helps, because today I'll show you where these beliefs come from, how they show up in daily life, and how to reprogram them with small habits you can actually sustain. And stay with me, because the most important part is when we turn this into a simple system, something you can do the moment you feel yourself slipping into autopilot. Before I show you how to change it, I need to take away unfair guilt. You're not weak. You're not bad with money. There's an invisible moment where you get close to improving, and your brain hits the brakes. It hits the brakes because it prefers familiar over healthy, and because it thinks it's protecting you from something. Once you see that, something shifts. You stop hating yourself for sabotaging yourself. You start watching the pattern like a mechanism, not a character flaw. And that's when you can finally adjust the mechanism. Think of your mind like an operating system running in the background. You think you choose with logic, but many money decisions come from an old program that got installed years ago. And the wild part is, it runs so automatically you think it's your personality. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the magic happens in your brain. When you carry a belief like money corrupts, your brain tries to keep you away from the risk of becoming a bad person. So it pushes you towards small behaviors that don't look dramatic but add up into sabotage. You start spending more than you should right after you earn more. Not because you're irresponsible, but because deep down, holding too much money feels uncomfortable. You're not allowed to keep it. The purchase becomes a way to drop back down to the level that feels safe for your identity. If the belief is, I don't deserve it, the pattern looks a little different. You can earn, but you avoid investing in yourself, avoid asking for a raise, avoid charging your worth because it feels like you're doing something wrong. So you get stuck under an invisible ceiling. You have to apologize for wanting to improve. If the belief is, rich people are bad, then you start missing opportunities without noticing. You label opportunity as luck for other people and danger for you. You avoid investing because investing feels greedy, so you try to be a good person, and you pay with anxiety. There's also a limiting behavior that often shows up with all of this: self-punishment. You have a good week, and you feel like you need to balance it out with a bad week. Fairness means suffering a little. It's like your mind says, okay, you improved. Now get back in your place. It's like planning a vacation while your house is on fire. You try to think long-term, but inside there's a siren screaming, this is dangerous. This will go wrong. This isn't for you. And when that siren goes off, you don't act like a planner. You act like someone escaping. But once you cross a simple point, catching the belief in action, your brain has room to think differently. Instead of, what's wrong with me? You start asking, what old sentence is driving me right now? That shift alone weakens the belief because it stops being truth and becomes just a thought. Then a new mental state appears. You become an observer of your pattern. Instead of I'm the type who spends, it becomes I spend when I feel X. Instead of I never invest, it becomes I freeze when investing triggers the idea that money is dangerous. That opens the door to reprogramming without constant inner war. You don't have to force yourself to love money or become obsessed. You just have to replace the belief with a useful narrative, one that lets you grow without hating yourself. Psychology research shows beliefs and identity shape behavior in very real ways. When you believe something isn't for you, your brain literally pays less attention to paths that would take you there. When you change the internal story, you change what you notice, what you try, and what you can sustain. You might think this is just mindset talk, and what matters is simply earning more. And while earning more helps, it's not what drives self-sabotage patterns. The secret is simpler and more encouraging. You're not broken. You're running an old script, and scripts can be updated. Here's where the math gets exciting, because it gives you a reality check without beating you up. A belief feels like something in your head, but it turns into monthly costs, interest, and missed opportunities. Once you put numbers on it, you realize this isn't just emotion, it's a leak. Imagine you just got a raise, and on paper, it's about $300 more per month after taxes. You think, finally, I'll have breathing room. But then autopilot hits. One more DoorDash order, one more subscription you forgot about. Just today, Amazon purchase. Next thing you know, the raise is gone. And you can't even point to where it went. That doesn't happen because you're weak. It happens because your brain is trying to keep you at the familiar level. If deep down the belief is, I don't deserve it, or if I grow, I'll become a bad person, having money left over creates a weird discomfort. So you relieve that discomfort by making the money disappear. Then you feel guilty, and the loop becomes perfect. $300 a month doesn't sound huge until you zoom out. In 12 months, that's $3,600. In 5 years, that's $18,000. And that's before you add credit card interest, pay later habits, or little payments that quietly stack up. It's not just the money. It's the time of your life you bought with work and accidentally threw away. Now here's the part that flips the game, because this is where compounding shows up the right way. Instead of letting that $300 leak out, you automate it and treat it like the first bill of the month. And the engine isn't just returns. It's the identity that forms. I'm the kind of person who pays my future first. In the first cycle, you won't feel fireworks. And that's why people quit. Because the brain wants a fast, visible reward, and investing is quiet. But the win of the first cycle isn't getting rich. It's stopping the self-betrayal. Acceleration starts when you stop relying on willpower. Willpower is finite, especially after a long day, stress, conflict, exhaustion. Automation beats exhaustion, and people underestimate that. Think about it. You do the same work as before. You get your paycheck. But now you don't hand the extra to anxiety in the form of relief spending. You save time because you have a resource working for you. Consistency, repetition, compounding. And you can feel it in human-sized cycles. In 30 days, you feel less guilt and fewer, where did my money go? Moments because the leak shrinks. In 90 days, something rare shows up. Trust in yourself because you have proof, not a promise. In 12 months, you look back and realize your identity shifted without you forcing it. You're no longer someone trying to control yourself. You're someone with a system that protects you on your worst day. That protection is what makes long-term progress possible. In 36 months, the curve becomes something else. Not because you found a secret, but because you stopped interrupting your own progress and let time work. What felt small becomes consistent, and consistent becomes big. Now the demystification. This isn't motivation, it's mechanics. This isn't think positive. It's refusing to feed a pattern that drains your money and your mental energy. Often the difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck is that one stopped losing to their own script. A small amount repeated turns into a strong system, and your old brain hates that because it proves you can do it. And if you can do it, the old belief loses power. So the early goal isn't a perfect number. It's enough consistency for your mind to accept the new financial identity. Here's what most people miss when they try to fix money. They try to change numbers without changing identity. But the way you handle money is basically the way you handle deservingness, safety, and fear. So if the old belief is still alive, it will always find a way to sabotage your progress. Before this shift, your financial life becomes a chain of exhausting micro-decisions. You spend the whole day policing yourself, resisting, feeling guilty, and by night, you're drained. And when you're drained, the old script grabs the wheel because it's the most familiar path. You get stuck in small worries that sound rational, but are really anxiety in disguise. Should I invest right now? Am I behind? What if I mess this up? Do I even deserve this? That inner conversation becomes an emotional tax you pay every single day. After you start reprogramming, the game flips from micro to macro. You stop trying to win every temptation and start choosing the big levers that actually matter. You trade scattered effort for a simple structure that protects you when you're tired, stressed, or unsure. The identity change here is very specific. You move from survival mode to builder mode. In survival mode, money feels like danger, a test, a moral judgment about who you are. In builder mode, money becomes a tool, and a tool doesn't define your character. It simply expands your options. That shift changes how you show up at work and in your career, too. Because "I don't deserve it" doesn't only show up when you spend, it shows up when you negotiate and grow. You accept less than you're worth, avoid hard conversations, and call it humility when it's really fear. When your narrative changes, your posture changes with it. You ask for a raise with more clarity, you position yourself better, you stop treating opportunity like a threat. And you don't become arrogant, you become steady because you stop confusing value with guilt. Then the cascade effect kicks in, and it's almost unavoidable when you sustain the new identity. You get more consistent, guilt drops, and you feel a different kind of calm when you look at your money. A lot of the time, you don't even have to force discipline because the new pattern becomes automatic in a good way. But there's a fatal mistake people make at this stage, and it can wipe out momentum fast. They feel better and swing into a kind of euphoria like "I'm a brand new person forever," and they overreach. They try to change 10 things at once, or they try to prove they changed by spending, or they try to make up for lost years with urgency. The problem is urgency looks like motivation, but it's anxiety wearing a nice outfit. You swap one script for another. You leave "I don't deserve it" and fall into "I have to prove I deserve it." And you end up in the same cycle, just with a fancier label. When you do it the right way, opportunities show up cleaner and more sustainable. You invest without feeling like you're becoming a bad person. You grow without feeling like you're betraying your roots. You improve without apologizing. You stop using money as a moral test and start using money as a foundation for a calmer life. That's the real transformation. You don't become a different person overnight. You become the same person, just with a new script that allows progress without self-sabotage. And when that happens, money stops being a battlefield and becomes a system that works with you. This will make you laugh or cry. But the hidden villain in your money life isn't a missing spreadsheet or a lack of tips. It's an old sentence you believe without noticing, and it charges you interest every single day. And the cruel part is, it charges you in two currencies, money and self-worth. Because when you carry "money corrupts" deep inside, prosperity starts to feel dirty. You might want to grow, but you grow with shame, like you're doing something wrong. So your mind tries to correct you, and that correction shows up as self-sabotage, spending to shrink the balance, skipping opportunities, or freezing when it's time to invest. When you carry "I don't deserve it," the pattern looks different, but the outcome is similar. You earn a little more and feel a strange discomfort, like stability is dangerous, like it can't last. So you spend to release the tension, you punish yourself without realizing it, and then you call it lack of control, when it was really a lack of internal permission. And when you carry "rich people are bad," the damage gets even quieter, because it looks moral. You avoid the actions that would help you grow, and you label it humility. You label it not being greedy. But in practice, you're paying a high price to keep an identity that earns approval, while it steals your future. Now look at how this destroys value in real life. No theory required. You don't invest early because it feels greedy, and you lose years of compounding that nobody can give back. You accept less pay than you're worth because asking for more feels like too much, and you lose recurring income for years, and that gap multiplies over time. There's also a kind of destruction you won't see on a statement, but you'll feel in your life. You waste mental energy. You live in constant inner negotiation, like every money choice needs a moral trial. And when your mind is packed with guilt, you lose focus. You lose courage. You lose presence. And that costs money too, just through indirect paths. You've probably lived this in a very normal way. You have a good month, bills are covered, money finally starts to remain, and you can't just sit in peace with it. You find a reason to spend, or you start picking holes in the plan, or you invent a massive future problem, just to return to the emotional state that feels familiar. And I genuinely get it, because these beliefs usually came from somewhere. Maybe you grew up where money meant fights, where money talk felt shameful, where someone got hurt through debt or instability. Maybe you watched someone change when they started earning more, and your brain decided, I will never become that. Your brain did what brains do. It built protection. But old protection becomes present-day sabotage because you're not the same person living under the same risks. What kept you safe back then can keep you small now, and that's an unfair trade. This is where opportunity cost becomes the lens that changes everything. Instead of, can I spend? Can I invest? Can I grow? You start asking, what does it cost to stay in this pattern? Because staying in the pattern costs years of peace, costs options, costs time, and time is the most expensive asset you have. Picture 5 years repeating the same cycle. You don't have to crash for it to hurt. Staying stuck in the middle is enough. Always restarting, always feeling behind, always promising this time. That becomes an identity too. The identity of someone who always tries, but never sustains. And here's the irony. You try to motivate yourself with more information, but information becomes heavier. You know what you should do, so you feel more guilty when you don't. Guilt increases anxiety, anxiety increases impulse, and impulse reinforces the old belief. See, this is just who I am. This isn't about thinking positive and becoming a different person overnight. It's about updating the script in a way your brain can accept and proving that update through evidence, not promises. Your brain changes when it sees repetition, when it sees consistency, when it sees that the new pattern keeps you safe. So let's make it practical without turning it into a magical checklist. First, you bring the root belief into the light, because beliefs have more power in the dark, not the polite sentence you'd say out loud, the raw sentence that shows up when you think about money and feel a tightness, like, if I have too much, I'll become a bad person, or I can't keep this, or people like me don't get to be wealthy. When you write that sentence down, you create space between you and the thought. You see, it's not the truth of the universe. It's a mental habit, and mental habits can be replaced the same way spending habits can be replaced. Next, you choose a useful narrative that feels true enough to stick. You can't replace it with a perfect sentence that sounds fake, because your brain will reject it and pull you back. You want something that keeps you decent and grounded while allowing growth, like, money doesn't corrupt me. Money amplifies my choices, so I choose to amplify what I value. If your old sentence is, I don't deserve it, you don't need arrogance to heal it. You can replace it with, I deserve stability because I build, I work, I take care, and I can take care of myself without guilt. It's a small shift in story, but it changes your internal permission. But the real reprogramming isn't the sentence. It's the small habit that proves the new story in real life, because your brain trusts what you do more than what you say. And the habit has to be small enough to do on your worst day, because identity changes are built on worst days. So imagine one simple move, an automatic amount, even if it's modest, moving towards something that represents your future. Not because the amount is magical, but because the action is a vote. Every time it happens, you're saying, I'm someone who prioritizes my future, even if your emotions disagree that day. And you add one protection rule for the moments when the old script tries to hijack you. Because it will happen. You'll have days you feel unworthy, guilty, triggered, desperate for relief. The rule doesn't need to be moral, it just needs to buy time. Like, when I want to spend for relief, I wait 24 hours and check what belief I'm trying to numb. In that space, you ask a simple, honest question. Am I buying this because I truly want it, or because I'm trying to escape a feeling? If it's escape, you don't punish yourself. You choose a different kind of relief that doesn't blow up your plan. Here's the detail most self-saboteurs miss. You won't win by changing everything. You win by removing the decision from the weak moment. You win by making the right thing easy and the wrong thing harder. Because self-sabotage isn't a character battle, it's a friction and environment battle. That's why people who truly change often look effortless. Not because they're superhuman, but because they stop relying on courage every day. They build a system where their tired version can still do the basics correctly. The final synthesis is this. Your money problem can look financial, but it's often psychological. It's not a lack of intelligence. It's an old internal system running without updates, and that system is expensive. When you update the script and prove it through small habits, money stops being war and becomes support. Start today, as simply as possible. Your future self is counting on you now, not to be perfect, but to be consistent. And later you'll look back and realize the best return you built wasn't only financial, it was the peace of not sabotaging yourself anymore.